Honorable Vice Chancellor, Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Kakinada, esteemed members of the Senate and Academic Council, distinguished members of the faculty, proud graduates, their equally proud parents, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by offering my wholehearted congratulations and my very best wishes to the young graduates. I must admit that I was missing something during the graduation ceremony. You know what it was? This is a very special day in the lives of these young people. It's a day of celebration. You graduate, you get your first degree only once, and that's a very special moment. You know what was missing? An applause was missing. Because at the end of the day, I always like to say that an applause and a smile doesn't cost anything. One can give it in abundance. I'm a great sort of champion of frugality. In fact, my entire lecture on Gandhian engineering is in frugality, on frugality. But not frugality in appreciation. So I think let us do justice. Not only applaud the existing award winners here in the hall, but also those who are not there, and so loud that even they can hear anywhere in India. Wonderful. I want to turn back to the young students and say that you are going to enter a new exciting world, a world where there are rapid changes in the political systems, economic systems, the technological environment. And this is happening all over the world, not just in India. And I would say the changes that you have seen in the political scenario during the last couple of weeks will tell you how rapidly India is changing. You know, they say that we live in a VUCA world, VUCA. V stands for volatility, U stands for uncertainty, C stands for complexity, and A stands for ambiguity. That is going to dominate the future. And therefore you are entering into a very challenging world. There are extraordinary opportunities for those who are prepared to face the challenge of change. And indeed, only those of us will survive and succeed who will be able to anticipate the change, and those who do this will one day lead the change. My young friends, we in India should have the ambition of leading the change and make things happen on our own terms. I have a special word of appreciation for the Gold Award winners, medal winners who have excelled. And while sitting there, we were just calculating, and we found that 15 out of the 24 gold medalists are young girls. So they are in majority. And I love that. I think that's also the symbol of the new India that is emerging. I have just one message for these young people. And that I'll make a bit anecdotal so that you will see the reality of this message. You know, I remember, as was read out in the citation, I became a fellow of Royal Society, London, right? In 350 years, one was privileged to be only the third Indian engineer to have been so honored. So I was very happy, and I went to my guru. You know who is my guru? Professor C.N.R. Rao, Bharat Ratna. He has been my mentor. Whatever I am is because of him, the inspiration that he has given me. So I thought he will be very happy, and I told him, sir, I have become a fellow of Royal Society. You know what was his response? Not bad. I was surprised. Then I became fellow of American Academy of, US National Academy of Science. From 1870, only one engineering scientist. So I thought now he will be happy. So I went to him. He said, not bad. Then American Academy of Arts and Science, from 1780, there have been only 7 Indians, 200 Nobel laureates, from Winston Churchill to Charles Darwin, from Nelson Mandela to Einstein, you name them, and only 7 Indians. So I thought now he'll be happy. And you know what happened? He said, not bad. Now I really got upset. I said, what do I have to do to impress you? And then he gave a message which I want to repeat for you. He said, you are climbing a ladder of excellence. And mind you, there is no limit to this ladder of excellence. Limitless ladder of excellence. And therefore remember, when you enter your professional career, remember there are no limits to what you can achieve. There is no limit to human achievement. There is no limit to human endurance, excepting the limits we put on ourselves. So have this limitless journey of excellence. That's the only message I want to sort of leave for you. It is an honor and a privilege to have been invited to deliver the convocation address. So I want to thank both the Honorable Chancellor and to you, sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor, for this gracious invitation. This university has honored me with an honorary doctorate degree today. So from now on, I must say, I become an alumnus of this university. And I'm a very proud alumnus. And I must say, this places a very special responsibility on me, just as it does on you, which is to work to ensure that this university keeps on climbing the limitless ladder of excellence till it reaches great heights. I was very impressed, Mr. Vice Chancellor, with the annual report that you presented, the great strides that you are making, your emphasis on ethics, intellectual property rights, good governance, the new advances that you are making by using advanced technologies. As President Obama once had said, that education and innovation are going to be the currencies of the 21st century. But going beyond, one has to say, it is education in innovation and innovation in education which are going to be the currencies. And I can quite clearly see your imprint already through your leadership in terms of innovation in education and, most importantly, entrepreneurship. Because India needs to grow, but it has to be job-led growth. It cannot be jobless growth. And for doing that, we must also create graduates who don't seek jobs, who give jobs. All right? And from that point of view, your endeavors in entrepreneurship, I would say, are very, very important. So I really wish you all the best in this climb on, may I repeat again, limitless ladder of excellence. Don't put limits. See, now this is proper. I love this. Applause. All right? Because eventually it is building an aspiration for our young people, for the university. I read the inspiring convocation addresses that were delivered by my distinguished predecessors. The first was by Dr. E. Sridharan. He's my hero, by the way, on the role of engineers in nation building. The second was by Dr. M.Y.S. Prasad on the role of engineers as technology leaders. I thought I should complete this trilogy by again speaking about engineers and about engineering, but giving an altogether different perspective of the new engineering that will engineer our future for a more equitable and sustainable world. But before I do that, I want to tell you something. And I want to tell you about my yesterday. And in my 71 years of journey, I would say the most remarkable day was yesterday. I visited KGD 6. I saw what Indian engineers can create. I saw engineering at its best as extreme engineering done under the most adverse conditions and creating something which I would consider as absolutely world class. My heart felt with great pride, I would say, because it was a really remarkable sort of day in my life. And therefore, right here, within few kilometers, we have an example of what India is able to do. So I'm very proud of Reliance, I'm very proud of India, I'm very proud of Indian engineers, and yesterday was a day of pride, just as today is a day of pride when this university is honoring me with this degree and all of you are entering this wonderful world. But today I'm not going to talk about this extreme engineering which is changing our energy future, but I'm going to talk about another engineering. What engineering would be most crucial for the 21st century to attain the objectives of both equity and sustainability? Chemical engineering, computer engineering, electronics engineering? Sorry, none of the above. It will be Gandhian engineering. And what is Gandhian engineering? Gandhian engineering is about getting more from less for more and more people of the world, to put simply. Now you would say, we have not heard this term Gandhian engineering. What was the origin of this term Gandhian engineering? Let me tell you how this word came about. A few years ago, 2008 to be precise, the Australian Academy of Technological Sciences and Engineering honored me with the fellowship of the Academy. And I remember I was the first Indian ever that they are so honored. So I said they don't know enough about India. Because had they known, they would have found 100 people who are better than me. So I said I must tell them something about India. And the title of my talk while receiving the honor was Indian Innovation from Gandhi to Gandhian Engineering. That is where the term actually came up. How did it come up? I asked myself, what was India's greatest gift to the world in the 20th century? I remember Einstein who had said, generations to come, it may be, will scarce believe that such a one as this, ever in flesh and blood, walked upon this world. Who was it? Yes, it was Mahatma Gandhi. That was India's greatest gift to the world in the 20th century. Then I asked myself, what would be India's greatest gift to the world in the 21st century, which are just emerging? A world that is deeply divided due to stark inequalities, a world where 800 million people will go to sleep every day without a meal. When we have our lunch today, please remember tonight, 800 million people in the world will go to bed without a meal. A world which is threatened with crises such as global warming, global economic meltdown, terrorism, and so on. And then I remembered two of Gandhiji's tenets. What was the first? I would prize every invention of science made for the benefit of all, not for some. And the second was, earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not for every man's greed. So the first tenet referred to affordability. It meets and benefits all. That means it is affordable. The second term referred to sustainability. And I felt that they're so relevant in solving all the problems that the world was facing today. So it was Gandhi's way, based on these two tenets, his solutions, his engineering, Gandhian engineering, that would be the savior of the world. And Gandhian engineering could be India's greatest gift to the world in the 21st century. The title of my talk in Canberra on 20th April 2008 to ATSE was decided there and then. It was Indian innovation from Gandhi to Gandhi engineering. And in that lecture, I remember, I explained to the audience the essence of Gandhi engineering. The industrial enterprises strive for getting more from less for more. You know, the mainframe computer used to occupy the size of this room. Today we carry something in our pocket which is 10,000 times more powerful, more from less, okay? They do it for more from less for more. More what? More profit, more value to the shareholder. So, it means that getting more performance from less resource for more profit is something that we have done all the time. But Gandhian engineering has a different message. It means getting more performance from less resource for more people, not just for more profit. Remember what Gandhiji had said, benefit for all, not for just a few. So for all has to be underlined. It has to be put in capital letters. Getting more from less for more, MLM, became the mantra that I would repeat from Beijing to Brussels, to Delhi to Hanoi, to Paris to Washington over the 5 years after I gave the lecture in Canberra, by the way. Because suddenly this word or term, Gandhian engineering, spread like a viral fever. The concept of MLM got enriched to an extent that the legendary C.K. Prahalad, CK as we fondly called him, and I wrote a paper, Innovation's Holy Grail, in the July-August 2010 issue of Harvard Business Review. Unfortunately, that was the last paper written by legendary CK. And we explained what MLM meant in terms of business perspective. We showed how industry could do well as do good by following the MLM strategy through Gandhian engineering. In fact, we illustrated how India always had the challenge of scarcity on one hand and aspiration on the other hand. And when you combine scarcity with aspiration, you come out with innovations which are rather unique. That paper showed that. The paper became an instant hit, and today it is ranked among the top 10 must-read paper in innovation, and last July it was ranked as #1, by the way. And within 6 months after that paper was published, the World Economic Forum had a session on MLM. See how quickly such messages actually catch on. Now, I want to take a little diversion here. I'm talking about affordability, isn't it? When you look at it, our image outside, unfortunately, is that of Jugaad India. Jugaad. I just don't like the word Jugaad. Let me declare it openly. Why? Because Jugaad is all about getting less from less for lesser people, getting it somehow, reducing the cost with no consideration for safety. You remember a Jugaad vehicle which collapsed about a couple of years ago, 30, 40 people died. You know, I mean, this is not the way. All right? Reducing the cost with no consideration for quality, performance, etc., is not what we want. That's not my idea of my India. My idea of my India is that it has to be leader in affordable excellence. Now, you would say, come on, you are joking. Because what is affordable can't be excellent, and what is excellent cannot be affordable. I'm sorry. India has shown that it can actually do that by making seemingly impossible possible. It also means that having it for billions of people who have very low purchasing power means it cannot be just low cost. It has to be ultra low cost. It cannot be affordable. It has to be extremely affordable. So if you ask yourself, all right, extremely affordable, give us some example. So let us ask some questions. Can we make a laptop which is $2,000 available for $200, or a computer tablet costing $35? 2,000 to 200 to 35. Can we make a hepatitis B vaccine costing $20 per dose available 50 times cheaper? That is 40 cents per dose. Can we make a psoriasis treatment costing $20,000 available at $100. You know? Can we make a comfortable, safe, fuel-efficient car available not at $20,000 but at $2,000? Can an artificial foot costing $10,000 be made available at $30? Can we make a high-quality cataract eye surgery not at $3,000 but $30? Now you would say these figures look ridiculous, but they have been done, they have been achieved. And by whom? By us in India. And it is affordable excellence because excellence goes with it. And I'm very proud to tell you, Mr. Vice Chancellor, that one of these examples that I gave has been achieved by one of the names that you took of a young man who graduated from here, Vara Prasad Reddy. Shanta Biotech actually did the recombinant DNA vaccine. And the game changed. When he entered, it was $200 and he $20 and he brought it down to 40 cents. And 40% of the UNICEF supply was provided by him, by the way. So the quality was very high. Excellence, yes. Affordability, yes. That's an example. Arvind Eye Care, a $3,000 cataract surgery, they do for $30. And they do some 300,000 patients per year. Now you would say, oh, come on, the surgery is 100 times cheaper. That means it must be 100 times worse in quality. I'm sorry. I have a table which shows that the Royal College of Ophthalmic Surgeons and Arvind Eye Care, if you compare them, okay, 9 out of 9 parameters, they beat Royal College of Ophthalmic Surgeons. They beat them. That means it is not less from less. It is more from less. All right? So it is not affordability at low quality. It's not jugaad. It is affordable excellence. That is the tenet of Gandhian engineering. I must emphasize that the objective of Gandhian engineering would not just to produce low performance, cheap knockoff versions of rich country technologies so that they can be marketed to poor people. Rather, the objective is to harness sophisticated science and technology know-how to invent, design, produce, and distribute high-performance technologies at prices that can be afforded by majority of people. I want to emphasize that young minds, like I see in front of me, will have a major role to play in Gandhian engineering. And why do I say that? Because I have seen them practice Gandhian engineering with my own eyes. And I'll explain to you how. You know, there is what is called as the National Innovation Foundation. My citation said that I'm the chairman of India's National Innovation Foundation. Yes, I am. How was that foundation created? It was created on the basis of a belief that 125 crore Indians does not mean 125 crore mouths, but they mean 125 crore minds. And that means that each one of us is capable of thinking, capable of creating new innovations. All right? And we give awards to these. I mean, more than 100,000 entries come, by the way. Every couple of years we give the awards, and those awards are given, by the way, by the President of India. The last one was given by our own President in March, 7 March, in Rashtrapati Bhavan. Out of 100,000, we select finally 30. And can you believe it? Many times 50% of them are illiterate people, by the way. It's incredible. And the President honors them. You know, this is giving a respect to the power of the Indian mind. Whether that mind is in a farm, whether it is a housewife, whether it's a school dropout, they're all capable. Now, what I have seen personally, on 28 February 2014, I was in Ahmedabad giving away the Gandhian Young Technological Innovation Awards. These national level innovation awards for the young who excel in Gandhian engineering have been started by Honeybee Network, which was set up 25 years ago under the inspiring leadership of Professor Anil Gupta, whom I consider as my guru. And these are given to young undergraduate students who create extraordinary innovations. Sir, you'll remember we had a discussion on undergraduate research. We had a discussion about what do they do in 6 months, right? And you remember I said there must be research-based undergraduate projects. Now here is an example. These all came from undergraduate projects. Now we had an exhibition of the award-winning entries which I saw personally before I gave away the awards. I went around. I was amazed at the quality of minds that I witnessed. But what touched me most was that their innovations were not just about making the next supercar or next super bike. You understand? Or next super racing car or whatever. They're all about making the life of every Indian, not some Indians, a bit better. They were thinking not just from head, but from heart. That was something very special. So you will say, what did you see? Let me give you some examples. Compliance is a big problem in the treatment of TB, tuberculosis. One of the solutions on display was just solving that problem by using cutting-edge innovative technology. Diagnostics is another area. India faces huge challenges. Because if you have electronics-based diagnostics, it can be a big problem in villages. When something goes wrong, there is nobody to repair it. So a student has asked, why do I need electronic-based diagnostics? Why not paper-based diagnostics? And some remarkable things we saw. We just got rid of the electronics. Then one saw a very low-cost but high-tech solution to detect as to whether one had pneumonia. I saw an innovation that looked at breast cancer through a new design of diagnostics based on photonics. Can you imagine that? Young students actually doing that. I saw their concern about visually impaired people. Somebody created an email system for people who could not see. Can you imagine? All the time they were thinking of the have-nots. And you know what was remarkable? These young people were also concerned about safety and security. I saw a helmet-based design. The vehicle will not start unless one was wearing the helmet. Can you just imagine that? I also saw stampede-linked image analysis. I saw an interesting innovation for women. It was to make sure that we no more have the incidence of another unfortunate Nirbhaya who was a victim of an unimaginable brutality in New Delhi last year. You know, it was a fast response system which was incredible, which can go off in a fraction of a second. So what I saw was this: all these young people, like you, were thinking from the point of view of those who were have-nots, those who were disabled, those who were struggling under great adversity. It was innovation for those under adversity. My young friends, this is the power of the young mind that makes me optimistic about India's future. You know, people call me, by the way, a dangerous optimist. All right? But I'm dangerously optimistic about India because of you. Because 50% of India is less than 25. And you know what is the great advantage of being young? They fulfill an important definition of an innovator, which is, an innovator is one who does not know it cannot be done. Old people like me think that it cannot be done. You people don't think like that. All right? Now, if 50% of India believes that there is nothing that we cannot do, you can imagine the future of India. That's what makes me dangerously optimistic. So, the characteristic that I saw among those exhibitions or those exhibits and those who created that was that they did not just have innovation in their minds, passion in their belly, but compassion in their heart. And therefore it's the combination of innovation, compassion and passion that makes an individual a great individual, that makes a nation a great nation. So the second message I want to really leave behind you, one, I talked about excellence, going on the limitless ladder of excellence, but the second one is building this capacity of not just innovation, not just passion, compassion, compassion in the heart. Let me come back to the image we have of India that refers to earlier my lecture. I have recently seen the report by McKinsey called Reimagining India. I have my own written book, Reinventing India. Yes, reimagining, reinventing, rediscovering India is important. But it's not just reimagining, but reimagining India. That is very important. And that's why yesterday, while I was on that great platform, I said people come here and they see Taj Mahals of this world. They should be seeing what we have done at KGD 6, by the way. These are the new Taj Mahals. They should see the Jamnagar refinery. They should see many other great accomplishments that India has had. And that can change the image of India. That image of India that we are, I always say the I in India must stand for innovation. It must not stand for inhibition. It must not stand for imitation. They think that we are people who imitate and so on. I think it's all wrong. It is this innovative India, combining affordable excellence like nobody else does. I think that's the image that we need to create. I must say that the concept of Gandhian engineering has been picked up around the world. My TED lecture, TED, which you can see on www.ted.com. I repeat, you just go to www.ted.com, TED, and you can see that lecture on Gandhian engineering. Do you know the number of views it has received in just 2 years? More than 500,000. More than 500,000, and actually as I was writing this lecture, there were 5,20,462. I don't know today's number, by the way. All right? So more and more people are looking at this message, and it is not just that lecture. Just a couple of months ago, on 11 March, I was in Brussels, where the European Commission had invited me to give a talk on innovation under adversity in their Innovation Forum 2014 event. And it was attended by around 2,000 participants. And 21st April, I was in Paris. OECD had invited me to give a keynote lecture on innovation for inclusive development, because India needs growth, but it needs inclusive growth. And it needs accelerated inclusive growth. And for that, inclusive innovation, based on the principles of Gandhian engineering, is required. And it is amazing, the feeling in both these, the Brussels meeting and the Paris meeting, was that we need to learn from India, all right? These principles of, whether you call it frugal innovation, inclusive innovation, reverse innovation, nanovation, Gandhian innovation, more from less for more, they all mean the same thing. They all mean creating affordable excellence. So why is it becoming popular now? The Western world always thought of quality at any cost. Then they say, no, we must also have sustainability, environmental. Okay, so sustainability and quality became the keywords. Now there is a new keyword, affordability, that has come in. Affordability, sustainability and quality. In fact, I remember when I spoke in Brussels, there was an audience of 2,000 and there was a question answer. And one of the fellows got up and said, tell us, what does it mean for Brussels? Brussels means European Commission, that means European Union. Somebody else got up and said, Dr. Mashelkar, don't answer it, I'll answer it. He said, within European Union, we have 28 member states, and you see the inequality between those 28, the top and the bottom. So we require access equality despite income inequality, which is the principle of your Gandhian engineering. All right, so we require it as much as you do. So the message I want to tell you about is that it is not just India's and China's and Vietnam's of this world who require that. The whole world is moving towards this. So I believe that in this decade of innovation, as has been launched, 2010 and 20, I think this is the position that we should occupy at the front end. We can lead the world. Now, while ending, let me just say the following. In the decade of innovation, what would we like to see happen? As a starter, as a proud Indian, I would like to see India achieve a place among the top 10 of the innovative nations in the world. We are not there. Among 140 nations, we are around 62, by the way. I think we have to climb. Second, it is not about getting into the top league alone. What do you do with that ranking? It is about change in our culture, in our society, making innovation as a way of life. It is about achieving innovation-led inclusive development and growth. Gandhian engineering can achieve that. It is about not some Indians doing well, but India doing well. India doing well. And Gandhian engineering can achieve that. It is also not about innovative India rapidly moving through that inclusive innovation route to becoming a truly inclusive society. Gandhian engineering can achieve that objective. It is about Indian model of inclusive innovation-led economic growth becoming a model for the rest of the world to follow. Gandhian engineering alone can take us on that path. So I have a submission, Mr. Vice Chancellor, for you, that you have been a pioneer, you have been a leader, you always are ahead of the curve, and it would be wonderful if this university could set up a chair on Gandhian engineering. You will take the lead amongst all the university by showing that you are ahead of the curve in conveying that it is not just the quality and sustainability, but affordability and a combination of these three. And that engineering which can achieve it, Gandhian engineering, is something this university will be leader in. So let me end by saying, in the 20th century, India's greatest gift to the world was Mahatma Gandhi. What could India's greatest gift to the world be in the 21st century? Surely, my young friends, it is Gandhian engineering. Thank you very much.
The graduates and guests shall rise from their seats.
I declare the fourth convocation closed.
The graduates and the guests are asked to remain standing when the procession retires. We wish you all the best for being one of the best in your service to education and thereby the society. On this happy occasion, we express our heartfelt congratulations and greetings to today's achievers and wish to continue the same progress in future endeavors also. All the best. Thank you.
Now the auditorium, the dais, the entire university is yours. You are welcome to have photographs, and the photographs will be available with prince1prasad@gmail.com. You can contact 9989814644 after 1 hour. And a last word, pravartatam prakrutihitaya pardhivaha. That is a great message to you all. That means after getting this degree, pravartatam, whatever you do, do it in the interest of the nature or environment. Parents, graduates, parents and guests, you are all invited for the dinner. There will be a cultural program followed by dinner, and you are all invited. Tanguturi Prakasham gave a beautiful message to us all. He said, మొన్న నీకు పట్టా వచ్చి నిన్న నువ్వు కొత్త విషయం నేర్చుకోకపోతే నేడు నువ్వు ఒక నిరక్షరాస్యుడివే. అంటే ఇవాళ మనకి డిగ్రీ వచ్చిందని కొత్త విషయం కనుక నేర్చుకోకపోతే దెన్ వీఆర్ ఇల్లిటరేట్స్. దిస్ ఈజ్ ఆల్సో రిఫ్లెక్టెడ్ ఇన్ ది మెసేజ్ ఆఫ్ అవర్ ఆనరబుల్ వైస్ ఛాన్సలర్ అండ్ ఆల్సో అవర్ చీఫ్ గెస్ట్. The cultural program is at 7 o'clock, followed by dinner at about 8 p.m.